And good evening. The West is boiling tonight. That unrelenting heat wave smashing more records and now threatening a power emergency in California. The state already charred from dozens of deadly wildfires, including new evacuations as a fire explodes near the Tahoe National Forest. But the major concern tonight, California's power grid. Blackouts narrowly avoided yesterday, but sweltering temperatures continue and could leave millions in the dark and without air conditioning. And more extreme weather can be headed that way as Hurricane K, that's right, a hurricane, strengthens near Mexico's Pacific coast. We'll have more on that track and other tropical storms as well. But first, we begin with Miguel Almaguer, who's in the midst of that historic heat.
Tonight across California, the lights are on for now, on the brink of blackouts again as power demand reached an all-time record high overnight. Slivers of the Golden State plunged into darkness. Small regions, including parts of Silicon Valley, briefly lost electricity. The vast majority of the state, though, narrowly averting disaster.
Yesterday was the highest demand that we've ever seen in the state of California.
Dave Eisenhower, who helps monitor the flow of electricity across Southern California, says these are unprecedented times.
These hotter days just create a lot of demand on the grid. It means our equipment has to work harder. It means generators have to work harder.
As the state tries to manage a tangled web of thousands of miles of high voltage lines that feeds electricity to 80% of California, the complex and fragile system only staved off rolling blackouts after a plea for conservation, which included a first, emergency alerts that immediately curbed demand.
Those text messages went out, people reduced energy, and they got us through.
Now the grid faces another critical test today. More than 1 million in Northern California sweltering in temperatures above 110 degrees. And after 9 days of triple-digit heat, 50 million will broil through brutal conditions Wednesday and the rest of the week.
It's super hot in Sacramento right now. We're melting.
Facing dangerous days, there may be no better example of climate extremes than California's capital, hitting a record 116 degrees Tuesday. In the past 12 months, Sacramento marking its longest dry streak, its wettest day in history, and now the hottest. Tonight, a summer of extremes and another night on the brink.
All right, Miguel Almaguer joins us from Burbank, California. Miguel, we know it's going to be another anxious night out there in California. You reported on that text message alert last night. Many are crediting as a reason California avoided a major blackout. How exactly did that work?
Well, Tom, those alerts came on so many cell phones all across California. People got those emergency alerts like they do when somebody goes missing, or police are avoiding people, telling people to avoid an area. It was incredibly effective. The governor said because those alerts came out so quickly, the power immediately dropped in this area, and California averted a major blackout, Tom.
It's incredible the system worked that way and people actually paid attention to it. I want you to talk to me about the heat, though, because you mentioned Sacramento and that triple-digit temperature and some of the dangers if people essentially lose control of their ACs tonight.
Yeah, Tom, 116 degrees in Sacramento yesterday. That's a new record. Nobody has seen the capital city that hot before. And when residents lose control of their powers, they're essentially trapped inside incredibly hot homes. They're unable to cool. And even if your home is about 75 degrees, experts tell us they can quickly heat up 20, 30 degrees in a matter of just an hour or two, Tom.
That's wild. All right, Miguel Almaguer leading us off again tonight. For more of that heat danger in the West, I want to bring in NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns, who joins us now live in studio here on Top Story. So talk to me first about the latest on these triple-digit temperatures all across the Golden State.
Hey, this isn't just a typical heat wave. I just cannot express that enough. This is like a once-in-a-generational thing. Well, at least we hope so, but with climate change, it may be more often. But we are seeing temperatures we've never seen before. San Jose and Sacramento, the hottest temperature yesterday they've seen in over 47,000 days of recording temperatures back to the late 1800s. That's the kind of numbers we've been dealing with. And today, right now, it's 105 in Salt Lake City. Their all-time hottest temperature is 107, only 2 degrees away. And this is the 4th time this summer alone Salt Lake City has hit 105 degrees. That's warmer than Phoenix right now. Hottest spot on the map, Fresno at 111, only 3 degrees away from your all-time hottest temperature. So yesterday was probably a little bit hotter, and today is still extremely hot. 50 million people still impacted through tomorrow. We will gradually cool, but it's gradual. I mean, it is still going to be very hot right through the weekend.
So they're dealing with this heat and now also a hurricane?
It's kind of a wild. I mean, you think California, you're thinking, a huge September heat wave, all-time records, and then all of a sudden you're thinking about the possibility of a tropical moisture feed into Southern California from a hurricane. So this is K. It's kind of close to Cabo San Lucas. We get these storms down here. That's kind of common. But this one is going to drift northwards up the coast, then make a little button hook just south of San Diego and Los Angeles. It never rains in September in Southern California. It will from this storm, though. They're not going to get hit with a tropical storm. That's not what's going to happen. But they are going to get that tropical moisture moving in. When it closest approach, it looks like Friday night into Saturday morning. And here's the rainfall forecast. Like Palm Springs could get 2 to 3 inches of rain. That's like unheard of. So the desert areas will get the rainfall in the mountains, maybe a possibility of a 1/2 inch to 1 inch from San Diego to Los Angeles. And already we're under a very unusual, moderate risk of flash flooding in Southern California, Tom. So that's, this is a graphic that has never existed for me before. This is very rare.
And Bill, before you go, though, and I don't know if you have the maps for this, but I know you're watching the tropics as well. There's some action happening there that we should sort of be monitoring?
Nothing that's going to approach land. Bermuda is going to be a little close to getting towards Earl, but that's it. The U.S. so far, the lower 48, knock on wood or whatever else, we've been spared in the Atlantic Basin.
Okay, Bill, thanks for clearing that up. We appreciate it. Now to new developments in the killing of veteran Las Vegas investigative reporter Jeff Gehrman. Authorities now searching the home of a local politician and releasing chilling new surveillance video of a suspect. Stephen Romo has the latest.
Tonight, new clues emerging in the fatal stabbing investigation of Las Vegas reporter Jeff Gehrman. Our affiliate KSNV obtaining these images of officers seen outside a home belonging to Robert Tellis, the Clark County public administrator. Las Vegas Metro Police confirming the department is currently serving search warrants. Authorities, though, would not confirm who the warrants were for. Authorities also releasing a new video of a suspect along with a picture of their car. Police say they believe it's a red GMC Yukon Denali with chrome handles, a sunroof, and a luggage rack. A similar GMC Yukon was seen being towed from the Tellis driveway.
It's very important for us not only to identify and arrest the suspect, but we want to do this case in a way where we can have a solid prosecution and hold that person accountable.
Gehrman was known for his stories on political corruption and scandals. He recently reported on turmoil and bullying allegations within Tellis's offices for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Tellis conceded a close Democratic primary race for his position as Clark County public administrator in June, then lashed out online at Gehrman, tweeting, "Does the Las Vegas Review-Journal know that Gehrman, quote, basically made a veiled threat to make me take down my site with the truth after I already lost the election?" The next day also writing, quote, "Looking forward to lying smear piece number 4 by Gehrman. And I think he's mad that I haven't crawled into a hole and died." NBC News has reached out to Tellis and have not yet heard back. Police say the longtime investigative reporter was found stabbed to death near his home on Saturday.
We believe that altercation that resulted in the murder happened the morning of September 2nd, Friday. We were not notified and didn't respond until Saturday morning.
Police say they don't think the public is in any danger of similar attacks.
We do encourage our public to always remain alert, always report suspicious activity. But as of now, we believe this was an isolated incident.
Tellis nor any suspect have been charged.
All right, Stephen Romo joins us now live in studio. So, Stephen, I got to think this new twist has really impacted the news community there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, this had a lot of attention on even before we knew who the victim was. And once we heard that name of Gehrman, a lot of more attention was on this. And hearing that Tellis was possibly the subject of this warrant has caused so much speculation and attention to be put on this case, not just from the media, but just people in Las Vegas who have a lot of questions about this.
So connect the dots for me, if you can. They think his car matches, and when I say him, the county clerk, they think his car matches the description of the suspect's car as well. Was that the connection?
It seems like it. Police are actually not releasing a ton of information right now, but our affiliate there in Las Vegas did see that vehicle, and they've reported that to us and to the public as well. And that has also caused a lot of speculation about this case and possible connections to this crime. And a lot of people are waiting on police to release more information about that potential connection. They wouldn't even tell us who the warrants were actually for. But again, we did have those eyewitnesses there.
And just to clear this up as well, I mean, this county clerk, this is somebody who works for the local government. I mean, do we know how he went from being this government worker to now being what appears to be a serious suspect in this case, possibly?
Well, it seems the the primary that was just held. There was a lot of contention there. And as we know, Gehrman, a reporter, an investigative reporter, often digging into cases of corruption, it really leads down a lot of implications of why this could have happened. But again,
possibly a revenge killing or something. We're not there yet, but that's maybe where some of the thinking is going.
A lot of speculation on that right now.
All right, great. Stephen Romo, we thank you for that. Thanks for staying on top of it. We turned out a disturbing new detail tonight on the murder of a Tennessee teacher, an affidavit revealing that the suspect was seen cleaning his SUV and claiming he was, quote, behaving oddly in the hours after Eliza Fletcher disappeared while jogging. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is in Memphis with the latest.
Tonight, NBC News obtaining surveillance video appearing to be from roughly 3 hours after Eliza Fletcher's alleged abduction, showing a black SUV driving through the neighborhood where police discovered the mother of two's body. Possibly the scene outlined in court documents. The suspect cleaning the interior of the car with floor cleaner, according to 2 witnesses, including his own brother.
You're now charged with first-degree murder.
Back in court today, the 38-year-old suspect now being referred to as Cleotha Henderson, his legal name. Henderson temporarily denied bond as we learn more about his violent past. Tonight, the Shelby County Juvenile Court tells NBC News a court found Henderson to have committed rape at age 14. The court saying it can release this information about a minor because the crime was so severe. Henderson was later sentenced to 24 years in another kidnapping case, but was released early in November 2020, thanks to credit for time served and working while locked up.
What do you say to someone who thinks this guy should not have been on the street at all?
Quite probably he should not have been on the street. When you have repeat offenders, repeat violent offenders, they need to be dealt with very strongly.
People convicted of serious crimes like this now serve their full terms under a new state law. Henderson's defense attorney has not shared any comment with NBC.
All right, Jesse Kirsch joins us now live. Jesse, explain the mix-up with the suspect's name. I know people following this story might have been a little confused there. And that new law you mentioned that could prevent future alleged crimes like this one?
Yeah, so Tom, the suspect had been identified as Cleotha Abston, including in court documents. But in those documents, the name Henderson was in parentheses next to Abston. In court today, the judge said that in actuality, the suspect's last name legally is Henderson, and that is, according to the judge, something that he was told by the suspect. As for this law you're talking about, in Tennessee, they just passed a law here, just enacted this law, which says for certain crimes, you must serve the entirety of the sentence. You cannot get credit for things like working, which we are told the suspect got credit for in a sentence for the kidnapping case in which he pleaded guilty so many years ago. So in theory, if this law were in place, enacted, when he committed that crime, which he pleaded guilty to so many years ago, he would still be behind bars today and wouldn't have been in a position to carry out what he's accused of doing, kidnapping and killing Eliza Fletcher.
Eliza Fletcher was a mother. She was a teacher, and killed in such a gruesome manner. And I know the people in that community are planning to gather tomorrow to honor her.
That's right, Tom. She was also an avid runner, and so we expect on Friday, actually, you can see the memorial growing here, but on Friday there will be a group of people gathering before dawn in this community trying to finish the run that Eliza Fletcher should have. Tom?
All right, Jesse Kirsch with that new reporting from Memphis. Jesse, we appreciate it. Time now for power and politics, where in key swing states, the races for Secretary of State and Attorney General are getting extra attention. That's because some 2020 presidential election deniers are running for those offices, meaning a victory in November would grant them huge election certification responsibilities. Vaughn Hilliard has this story.
This fall, it's not just Senate, House, and governor's races garnering immense attention ahead of the midterms. That's because it's many of the down-ballot races in key swing states that could hold the fate of American democracy in their results.
So let us work together to restore election security, election integrity, and the rule of law.
Secretaries of state are responsible for overseeing their state's elections, and in states like Arizona, responsible for certifying the presidential results before sending to D.C.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
In 2020, each Secretary of State signed off, but now some self-proclaimed election-denying Republicans in 5 key states could change that. Several have refused to say that they would have certified Joe Biden's 2020 win. Others, like Arizona's Mark Fincham, even saying he would work to decertify the last presidential election if he wins this November.
Ladies and gentlemen, we know it, and they know it. Donald Trump won.
Fincham's challenger, Democrat Adrian Fontes.
To what extent are you articulating the threats to democracy at the forefront of your campaign?
Well, the threats to democracy could not be any worse right now. We're talking about folks who do not want democracy to run in a normal way. They don't want elections to operate in a predictable, regular fashion like a heartbeat. That's bad for business, it's bad for education, it's bad for law, because elections are that golden thread that run through the fabric of society.
Christina Caramo is the GOP's candidate for Secretary of State in Michigan, but refuses to say Biden won her state in 2020, despite him securing 150,000 more votes than Trump.
You don't disagree with the statement that Joe Biden won Michigan?
I'm not going to comment on that. I personally witnessed illegal ballots being cast.
You're not willing to say that Joe Biden won the Michigan election?
I will say this. I personally witnessed illegal ballots being cast.
There is no evidence backing up Caramo's skepticism of the 2020 results. Even the state's Republican-led Senate Oversight Committee found, quote, no evidence of widespread or systematic fraud after an 8-month review. In Arizona, the Attorney General must also certify the state's election results. Abe Hamadeh is running as the state's Republican nominee.
I will fight to secure our elections so that when Donald Trump runs and wins again in 2024, everyone will know it's legitimate.
Against Democrat Chris Mays.
Well, I think this year people across the country realize that because attorney generals are part of the certification process for presidential elections, that we've got to focus on AG races. And I think most people are starting to see that.
These secretaries of state and attorneys general races are attracting millions of dollars in campaign contributions, towering similar elections from previous midterms, according to data from the Brennan Center. If these election deniers pull off these victories, it could put the sanctity of U.S. elections in jeopardy. Tom?
All right. Vaughn Hilliard for us. Vaughn, thank you. Now to breaking news. The second suspect in a Canada stabbing spree has been arrested after a days-long manhunt. Police say Miles Sanderson was taken into custody in Rosthern, Saskatchewan. Miles and his brother Damien are accused of a stabbing rampage in the province on Sunday that left at least 10 people dead. Damien was found dead a day later, and police are investigating if his own brother was responsible. Okay, turning overseas now to the war in Ukraine, which is now nearing its 7th month. Inspectors warning of catastrophe as shelling continues on the area surrounding a Russian-held nuclear plant. Now, Ukraine is threatening to shut the entire plant down. Nuclear safety officials accusing the Russians of playing with fire. Megan Fitzgerald is on the ground in Ukraine.
Tonight, Russian bombs raining down in eastern Ukraine, trapping several people under the rubble as Russia holds on to much of the east. But Ukraine is also on the attack. A week into their counteroffensive, Ukrainian soldiers lowered a Soviet-era flag in a town near Kharkiv. Ukraine's President Zelensky says several villages have been recaptured, while again tonight the city around the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant is under fire.
We are playing with fire, and something very, very catastrophic could take place.
Now Ukraine says they may consider shutting the entire plant down out of safety concerns rather than relying on backup generators. Russian President Putin today defiant, saying Russia has not lost anything from the conflict and what he blasted as a, quote, sanctions frenzy. The Wall Street Journal recently reporting Russia is making more money off oil sales now than before the war, as it looks to countries like China and India for new buyers. Ties that seem to be strengthening. China and Russia are finishing joint military drills off the Russian coast as Putin and China's President Xi plan to meet face-to-face next week. Meanwhile, a devastating milestone here in Ukraine. More than 1,000 children have been killed or injured as the war enters into its 7th month. Tom?
Okay, Megan. Still ahead tonight, attacked in broad daylight. A group of mask-wearing suspects caught on camera throwing a woman to the ground and robbing her as she walked in her neighborhood. The action Chicago police are now taking. Plus, a woman killed by a shark while snorkeling in the Bahamas. Could a popular tourist attraction in the area be to blame? And the threat by United Airlines, why the company may suspend service from one of the country's busiest airports. Stay with us. Back now with new details on that deadly shark attack in the Bahamas. A 58-year-old woman from Pennsylvania killed by a bull shark while snorkeling with her family. Carrie Sanders has the latest.
In the crystal clear waters just north of Nassau in the Bahamas, a deadly shark attack. The victim, whose name has not been released yet, is a 58-year-old woman from Pennsylvania. She had been snorkeling with family members in a popular area usually considered safe. Tour boat operators rushed the victim to a dock in Nassau, where a crew member appeared to perform CPR, a woman on the dock pleading for someone to bring fluids.
I need IV fluids right now.
The victim and her family had arrived in the Bahamas as part of a 7-day cruise on board the Harmony of the Seas. Royal Caribbean saying the family was on an independent shore excursion, not arranged by the cruise line, adding Royal Caribbean is providing support and assistance to the guests' loved ones during this difficult time. Bull sharks are among the most aggressive sharks in the sea. There have been as many as 6 reported fatal shark attacks this year. Bull sharks have been identified in several of those cases, including one that left 17-year-old Addison Bethea of Florida so badly injured her leg had to be amputated. 5 years ago, also in the Bahamas, Tiffany Johnson was attacked by what was believed to be a bull shark. She, like the most recent victim, was also snorkeling. At the time, she told me,
I remember thinking, this is not the end for me. I'm not going to die here.
Now, 5 years later, Tiffany, a mother of 3, tells us she recently went back into the water. But not all shark attacks have that kind of survivor's happy ending. And now, one grieving family is left wondering if there was anything they could have done to prevent this tragedy at sea.
All right, Carrie Sanders joins us now from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Carrie, I understand you have some new reporting. The victim in this most recent case has been identified, and we're learning a little more about her.
Yeah, she's 58-year-old Caroline DePlacido from Erie, Pennsylvania. She and at least 5 members of her family were on board the Harmony of the Seas, taking a 7-day cruise. They made a stop in the Bahamas and took an excursion, but it wasn't one of those excursions set up by the Royal Caribbean. Rather, they set it up themselves. They went out to go snorkeling just beyond Rose Island to Green Key. It's a very popular, usually extremely safe place to go snorkeling, but in this case, sadly, a bull shark attacked and it was fatal. Tom?
Carrie, do we know if authorities in the Bahamas are worried at all? Because you mentioned Rose Island and there was that high-profile attack where that college student was attacked reportedly by a school of sharks also snorkeling in that area. We know with the proliferation of those wild pigs all around the Bahamas and social media, people have been getting up close to these pigs and feeding them in the water. Are Bahamians at all worried about maybe what type of tourism is happening here and if it's still safe, if possibly these sharks are being attracted to all these people and food?
Well, you know, the lifeblood of the Bahamas is tourism, so they're very conscious anytime something like this happens, and those pigs have been an incredible draw. I mean, they started out near Staniel Key on a little out island there, and they have since proliferated to other islands because people just love to see them. They're sort of surprised to discover that pigs can swim. The water is crystal clear, so it's become quite a popular thing. But there is no indication, at least this point, that there is a relationship between the pigs, you know, in the water drawing sharks in. But the experts do know that splashing in the water, especially early in the morning and late at night, suggests that there's a fish in distress, which may draw sharks. But at this particular time, you know, nobody is saying that pigs are a direct problem, but obviously people are very aware that, you know, sometimes these horrible things happen. In this case, a bull shark that, you know, one of the most aggressive sharks in the ocean attacked. Tom?
All right, Carrie Sanders for us tonight. Carrie, we appreciate it. For more on this latest shark attack in a tourist hotspot, I want to bring in Michael Heithaus, who joins us now from Hawaii, obviously live on a boat in the middle of the ocean. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. He's a marine biologist at Florida International University, which is in the great city of Miami. Mike, this was off the coast of Nassau in the Bahamas, and the truth is, if you've ever been fishing anywhere in the Bahamas, bull sharks hang out at all the marinas waiting for anyone to throw their leftovers or whatever's left of the fish after you filleted it. And it's very common to see them throughout marinas all through the Bahamas. But now we have this attack, which follows that high-profile attack in Rose Island where the family members of the victim say a school of sharks attacked that college student. What's your take? Do you think people should be concerned about the proximity of both these attacks in the Bahamas?
Well, you know, in general, shark attacks are still incredibly rare, and you know, that doesn't reduce how sad and unfortunate this situation is. But, you know, even in the Bahamas, we have so many people in the water. There really aren't that many attacks. And so it really shouldn't keep people from getting in the water and enjoying the ocean there.
Does it worry you at all? I mean, you open up Instagram and you look at any picture from the Bahamas and you see everyone's doing sort of the wild pig thing, which started in Exuma, as Carrie said, but it's now grown to other islands, which I actually didn't even know. But it seems like everyone goes out, they want to feed the wild pigs, they want to get their pics for Instagram. I'm sure it's a lot of fun. Does that worry you at all about just sort of, I don't know, the other marine life that it may attract and or that sort of practice without it being monitored in any way whatsoever?
Well, you know, we just don't have any information on whether the pigs are linked to sharks. But I mean, the one thing we do know about sharks is if there is lots of food in the water, you know, splashing that you heard Carrie talk about, that can attract sharks. So, you know, you don't want to necessarily be swimming in areas where a lot of fish or scraps are being thrown in the water because that can attract bull sharks. And bull sharks are big predators. They eat big prey. And so even though most times bull sharks see people, there's not going to be any problem. You really don't want to be in the water with them if you can avoid it.
You know, these last two incidents in the Bahamas that we were talking about that were close to each other, they both involved snorkeling. I mean, snorkeling generally, as you mentioned, is very, very safe. Any tips, though, that you can give to people who maybe aren't too familiar with snorkeling? They're going out on an excursion, or maybe they're leaving the excursion that's sponsored by the cruise ship, and they're going out to an independent operator in a place like the Bahamas. Any kind of best practices you can tell our viewers?
Yeah, well, I mean, a few things you might keep in mind. Again, keeping in mind that shark attacks are rare is, you know, be in a big group because sharks are less likely to attack something that's in a big group. You know, maybe avoid dawn and dusk when predators can be really active. And, you know, you might avoid areas if you see lots of other activities going on, like fishing, that sharks might associate with food. But, you know, in general, you know, you stay to areas where, you know, people are swimming, they're used to it, nice clear waters, and you're going to be able to have a great time in the ocean without having to worry about sharks.
Mike, before you go, what are you doing out there in Hawaii?
We're actually out here doing some research on tiger sharks because, you know, we hear about these attacks and they are awful, but it's really important that we have healthy shark populations to have amazing ocean ecosystems like we have in the Bahamas, which can be the base for tourism, but also to support the fisheries that we know we all depend on.
All right, we will leave the shark looking to the pros like you. Mike, we appreciate it. When we come back, trapped underwater, the rescue in South Korea as floodwaters submerged an underground parking lot. How two people managed to survive there for 12 hours. Stay with us. All right, we're back now with Top Stories news feed. We begin with the search for a group of suspects behind a violent robbery caught on camera in Chicago. A home security cam capturing the moment four masked men jumped out of an SUV and threw a woman to the ground as she walked in her own neighborhood. This all happened in broad daylight, as you can see. Police say she was then robbed at gunpoint. Those suspects eventually fled the scene. Police are now stepping up patrols in that neighborhood. Now to the Florida neighborhood evacuated after boxes of explosives were found in the backyard. Firefighters found the devices near a camper van in Cocoa Beach. After some of them detonated, the neighborhood was briefly evacuated while the FBI and ATF responded. The area was eventually deemed safe and the explosives removed. So far, no charges against the van owner. United Airlines is threatening to suspend service at one of the country's largest airports. In a letter to employees, the airline said it will end service to New York's JFK at the end of October unless federal regulators let it operate more flights there. United currently operates 2 daily round-trip flights to San Francisco and another 2 to Los Angeles. And the Obamas returned to the White House to unveil some new artwork. Take a look. The former president and former first lady revealing their official White House portraits in the East Room today. You will see those soon. The portraits are typically displayed during the first term of a president's immediate successor, but former President Trump did not schedule that ceremony. There they are. Okay. Now to an NBC Nightly News exclusive. As marijuana legalization expands across the country, law enforcement says it's seen a disturbing trend, a rise in human trafficking, with many victims forced to grow marijuana that can end up in legal dispensaries, what the Department of Homeland Security defines as a form of modern-day slavery. Jacob Soboroff reports.
An early morning raid in Southern California's Mojave Desert.
Sheriff's Department search warrant!
As deputies from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department target an urgent problem. The proliferation of black market marijuana farms not only drawing complaints from locals, but also growing weed illegally and using illegal methods to do it. We followed behind with the lieutenant in charge of the raid.
Who's actually doing the growing at these places? Individuals that have been trafficked here to work off their debt for being smuggled into the country.
So they're being trafficked?
Yes.
As we approached, we see several workers fleeing.
We had several bodies jump over the mound.
Get on the ground! Lay down!
These people that are getting arrested right now, the lieutenant says were the ones that were growing the marijuana, but he also says they themselves might be victims of human trafficking.
Can I ask them a couple questions?
Yep, go at it.
We identified ourselves as journalists, and producer Arnie Hakala, who speaks Mandarin, helped translate.
How did you come here?
They found this job through a website, a Chinese website.
Through a Chinese website. What were you doing for work before this?
They all worked at restaurants before this.
How are you paid? Who's paying you?
They said they haven't actually gotten paid yet.
You haven't been paid?
No.
One of the workers, Fang from Flushing, New York, agreed to show us the trailers where she said she and others had lived for weeks.
She lives here. So she says it's very, as you can see, it's very dirty, it's very messy.
The person or people who brought you here, did they tell you the truth about what you were coming to do?
No, they didn't tell her that. If they told her it would be like this, she wouldn't have come.
The workers tended to over 20 greenhouses on the farm, and deputies say they found over 1,000 pounds of processed marijuana ready for sale.
This product will end up in a dispensary. In a legal dispensary? Legal, illegal. Consumers could show up to a dispensary, buy weed, and it could have potentially been grown by a victim of human trafficking? Yes. If you look at the number of legalized grow locations for the state, there's not enough of those to funnel product for the legal dispensaries. So over 70 to 80% of marijuana at your dispensary is illegally cultivated.
The lieutenant calculated the value of the cannabis at this grow alone was worth roughly $10 million.
Whoever's running this place is making a fortune, but the people working here say they haven't even made a dime yet. That's correct.
After being charged with a misdemeanor, the workers were released. And one, Jin, told me none of them had any money. Weeks later, we were contacted by Jin, and we found him living between a friend's car and this motel room in L.A. He says he'd been trying for weeks to borrow enough money to make it home to his family in New York. I have no money, Jin said. What hope do I have?
All right, Jacob joins us now in studio. So, Jacob, you mentioned all the people that were trafficking, those other humans. They got misdemeanors. What happened to the person that was actually running that illegal grow?
Same thing. Isn't that unbelievable? That's because these victims will not self-identify as victims of human trafficking. So the same day that we were on that raid in San Bernardino County, in Los Angeles County, the guy who ran that operation, his house was raided. There were 10,000 pounds approximately of weed at that guy's house. He basically gets a ticket, a misdemeanor, and he gets let go.
So California has become sort of the face of legal marijuana in this country. Is this happening in other states where marijuana is legal?
All across the country. So some of the people that we saw in the story are coming from here in New York City, from Flushing. San Gabriel Valley is a hotspot for the people to come and go to these grows. And the grows are all over the country, from Oregon to Oklahoma, obviously from the Pacific Northwest to the heartland. And that's why it's so shocking. People are going and buying weed, what they think is legal, but it could be grown by victims of human trafficking. We're going to explain tomorrow why this is happening and why law enforcement is having such a hard time, Tom, in cracking down on these grows.
All right, Jacob, we look forward to part 2 tomorrow. We thank you. Now to top stories global watch, in the deadly fire at a karaoke club in Vietnam. The fire starting at the top of the building near Ho Chi Minh City. At least 32 people killed in the blaze, with more than 40 others injured. Authorities now investigating what started that fire. It's now the deadliest in a string of fires at karaoke bars in Vietnam that have killed nearly 60 people since 2014. Okay, we want to turn now to that typhoon disaster hitting South Korea, killing 7 people trapped in an underground parking garage. Dramatic new video showing emergency workers rescuing 2 others from that garage, the pair reportedly surviving by holding onto ceiling pipes for more than 12 hours. That typhoon forcing nearly 3,000 to evacuate and leaving more than 66,000 homes without power. Okay, now to an abrupt end to a ceremony inaugurating a new footbridge in the Congo when the bridge collapsed. New video shows an organizer cutting the ribbon seconds before the bridge in the capital city gave way. Officials on that bridge said scrambling as the middle portion fell into the stream below. No one was injured in that collapse. Now to the Americas and a historic vote in Chile that has shaken up the country. Chileans rejecting a new proposed constitution, dealing a major blow to the new leftist president and leaving the future of that country in uncertainty. Here's NBC's Maya Eaglin.
In Chile, a major setback for the country's new leftist president, Gabriel Boric. Chileans overwhelmingly voted against a new proposed constitution on Sunday, rejecting what would have been one of the world's most progressive legislatures.
Es que me comprometo a poner todo de mi parte para construir en conjunto con el Congreso y la sociedad civil un nuevo itinerario constituyente que nos entregue un texto que, recogiendo los aprendizajes del proceso, logre interpretar a una amplia mayoría ciudadana.
The new constitution was set to be President Boric's legacy, a chance to change the current right-leaning charter imposed by the brutal dictator Augusto Pinochet in 1981. The proposal would have legalized abortion, adopted universal health care, and enshrined over 100 constitutional rights in what would have been a global record. It also focused on social and gender rights, climate change, and a controversial proposal to give Chile's 10 recognized indigenous groups territorial and political autonomy. It was meant to be a response to widespread uprisings in 2019, when violent nationwide protests over socioeconomic inequality gripped the country and left at least 30 people dead. Since then, Boric, who was a representative at the time, paved the way for a referendum to change the constitution, supported by nearly 80% of Chileans back in 2020. But in 2022, most Chileans deeming the new proposal too much too soon.
Prevaleció la cordura. Para la Constitución hecha bajo rabia, bajo esas tensiones fuertes entre una división, o sea, no era buena para Chile.
Era normal que se votara rechazo, porque es imposible cambiarlo todo así.
Supporters saying the resistance was fierce.
Creyeron en redes sociales, mentiras que le dijeron y tomaron miedo, creyendo que Chile podría volver a ser un Venezuela.
Analysts also saying the vote was a referendum on Boric's government at a time when his approval ratings have been plummeting since taking office back in March.
I think symbolically he was very tied to this proposal.
The vote turnout was historic, with 13 million out of the 15 million eligible voting, nearly 62% of them rejecting the proposal. The loss sending ripples across the president's inner circle. On Tuesday, Boric firing and shuffling 5 members of his cabinet.
Momentos más difíciles políticamente que me ha tocado enfrentar.
The president now promising to get right back to work. Center-left and right-wing parties that campaigned against the new constitution agreeing to negotiate and prepare a new text.
If Congress does not pass a reform to the Constitution, this is it for the constitutional process. If they cannot, and they just like drag this thing for a while, this whole process, I think we're going to see more contempt and more anger from the people.
All right, Maya Eaglin joins us now in studio. Maya, this was a huge story across Latin America because so many people supported this president. So do we know why voters really rejected this constitution?
A lot of people we spoke to said that they are fearful of change, and this proposed constitution had a lot of change in it. Some people just said it was a little too soon.
And maybe a little too far leftist. There were fears the country may turn into a Venezuela or even possibly a Cuba, something like that.
Correct.
How does the president bounce back from this?
So one of the experts we spoke to, Rodrigo, says time is on his side. Thankfully, the country has to draft a new constitution somehow. It's really just a matter of when it's going to happen.
So a big shout out to the young man from the CUNA high school football team. You have no idea what you just did for me. Thank you.
And that is just one of the emotional moments of this story we're going to tell you about tonight. It's a big thank you for one high school football player's viral act of kindness. He was supposed to be out in the community fundraising for his own football team, but when he met a neighbor in need, he knew he had to step up in a big way. That small act of generosity now going a long way.
As high school football kicks off in Cuna, Idaho, players went door to door this year fundraising for the team.
And a young man walks up and asks if I wanted to buy one of these ticket things that he's selling for his high school football team. And it's for restaurants and stuff like that. And I told him I don't have any money until until I get my check on the 3rd.
That's Idaho resident Kelly Miller. What happened next moved her to tears.
So I am literally crying right now. He walks over here, he gives me the ticket and $80 in cash and told me, go get groceries or anything that you need.
But the football player with that big heart didn't share his name. So Kelly took to social media, hoping someone knew the young man.
I put it on TikTok, hoping that TikTok would do its magic.
I need to know where this boy lives. But he wouldn't. He refused to keep the money and the ticket. He just handed it to me, gave me a big hug, and told me to get what I need.
That video quickly going viral. Cuna High's head football coach scrambled to identify the generous player.
My phone started blowing up like crazy. I was extremely proud. And when I saw the video, I'll be honest, it almost brought me to tears.
Under Cuna High's Friday Night Lights, that player, a 14-year-old freshman, Jamison Yanarella, stepping forward.
It wasn't about me and, like what we do. It's mainly about the deed. I went up to the stand, sat with her, gave her a hug, and then we took a picture. It was really nice that she got to come out to the game. She was really thankful that I came up to see her. It was just a cool experience.
This is one young football player going out of his own pocket for a stranger.
There's always people that have it harder than you do, and you need to just remember that and help people out when you can.
Now showing his team and the world that good coverage goes way beyond the gridiron.
I would love to see our young people realize how contagious kindness is. People don't get a lot of happy, and I thought this was a happy thing.
And a huge shout out there to Jamison. Really great act of kindness there. We thank you for watching Top Story tonight. We also want to thank our Idaho affiliate, KTVB, for their help with that last story. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.